Hi, my name is Bunny, or GunBunny, and this is my channel through guns and cosplay. Now, the first gun I ever bought was a medieval handgun, and at this moment where my power is out and so I'm just, huddled up next to this window, I have not shot it yet. And that's because I was waiting on one thing, to have the perfect outfit to shoot it in. That is my 14th century medieval kirtle that is like 60% hand sewn, and here is the arduous journey I went on to recreating this historical garment. I started out by printing out my pattern and laying them all out here. There are 4 main pieces: the sleeves, the skirt gores, the front and the back, which will be mirrored. And then I looked at some art for some inspiration for how I wanted to design this. So I have this lovely red fringe, which I'm going to use for the outer part of the kirtle. I'm going to make it lined because that's historically accurate, and also it hides all the modern seaming, though I still haven't decided if I am going to do like modern style lining or if I'm going to turn and fell lining to make all the modern seaming completely hidden. It's a lot more hand sewing, but it might make it look a little bit nicer. This is old sheet set, so that's what I'm working with. And for my lining, I have another sheet set that I got. Blue. Both are very common colors for clothing in the medieval era. My original plan was to do like blue and yellow, but then I couldn't find the yellow fabric I wanted at the thrift store, so it's what I got. But I have my sketch, I have my fabric, I have my pattern, let's get to cutting. Having laid out my fabric, I lay out my first pattern piece, pin it down for tracing it with chalk, and then cutting around it, leaving an ample seam allowance. Thank you for helping, Hunter. You're a good kitty. Next, I will iron out all of my pieces. I've cut out every piece twice, everything from the red fabric and again from the lining fabric, which is blue. Now, with all my pieces cut, I will lay them together, right sides to right sides, so that I can test it on my body and make sure that everything fits as it should. As I'm not doing a mock-up, I am just doing this with the main garment, knowing that I had cut it with extra seam allowance, just in case anything needed to get bigger. And here Houdini has come to help me by walking across my fabric. Thanks, Houdini. You're a good kitty. The arms fit pretty well. It's a lot tighter in the armpit than modern clothing, but that is historically accurate. The closer the cut is to the armpit, the more you're able to move your arms without moving the garment. When it's, a lower cut armpit and the arm is wider, you actually move the garment more. But you can see here it's not really moving. Let me just use these to line up the front and pin the front. Right, and this is exactly why I did it, because if you can tell, it doesn't fit quite right. It's quite loose in the waist and in the top chest area, so what I need to do is go in a good amount to make it lie correctly in both areas. So there we go. I just did it on one side because I don't need to do it on both sides just to pin mark it. I can just copy what I did on the other side. But properly, it will look more like this, which is much more accurate and much more, there we go. Beautiful. But otherwise, it fits pretty well. The length is good. Just brushing the floor. I'm excited. So now let me go back and I will draw in those new measurements. Now we'll repeat the same process with the lining pieces, pinning those together before realizing that I should have pinned them to the outer pieces, as I am doing a historical seaming method where I basically treat the lining and the outer as if they are the same piece, and then I will turn and fell them. The turning and felling will be explained later. I'll show you what I mean. It's a little bit confusing, but basically I treat the lining and the outer piece as if they're the same piece of fabric, which is why I'm lining them on top of each other like this now, and sew them as long as if they're the same piece of fabric, and then I'll hide the edges later. I will show you the historical trick for that later. With everything pinned together, I just machine sew all the straight lines. It's pretty easy. I just have to sew a straight line for the back pieces and then the front pieces and the side. You know, there's 4 panels, and then they all get sewn together. Hunter is helping me out here as I pin and sew everything together. Only not sewing all the way down to the bottom, because that is where I will insert the skirt gores. You'll see what I mean when you see the final dress and construction. It's a very simple garment. With the main body of the garment sewn together, I can start laying out my skirt gores. As you see here, these are just big triangles. There are 4 of them. 1 will go in the front, 1 in the back, and then 2 on the sides, along the same lines that the 4 panels were seamed together. And here I am with the sleeves and their gores, which came with the pattern. And then I will sew all of those together along the lines I'm pinning. The skirt gores are just get sewn in along the other seam lines that I did. Here you can see now what a little bit more I mean by treating the 2 pieces of fabric like they're the same piece. I am now going to set in our sleeves. I have the sleeve sewn together in its full tube shape, and I am just going to pin it into the little curves where the arms go. I will then sew along that line, as well as sewing the shoulder shut. With the entire dress construction mainly done, now it is time for the hand sewing. This is the historical seaming method I was talking about earlier, turning and felling. I take the edge of the seam, or as you can see of that little red line there, I roll it over until just twice so that the raw edges are hidden. And then I take a needle and thread. I took red this time to hide the thread, and I just do basically felling stitch, which is similar to a whip stitch, while making sure to only catch the lining so you don't see it on the outer side of the garment, and basically sewing that roll down. This took the longest time because basically every single seam I needed to do had to have the inside trimmed
and then turned and felled, along with every seam I sewed to put the garment together. So that's all of the gores, all of the sleeves, all of the paneling, as well as the entire hem of the skirt was turned and felled, the collar, and the sleeves. This all being hand sewn was a lot on my wrists and my hands, and it took forever, but I really like how it turned out, and you can see the final dress turned inside out here to show you what I mean by like all of the seams turned and felled, and then you can look at the construction a little bit better. Now, having all of the seams turned and felled and there's no raw edges left, all I have to do is the front. I decided to go with front spiral lacing instead of buttons, as I just liked it better, and also I don't want to make buttons. So the front closure that I left open instead of sewing it closed, because that's how I put it on, I basically marked out a bunch of holes alternating so they're not directly across from each other, and I poked a hole in the fabric and then hand whipped around the hole to make sure it stayed nice and neat. After all of that turning and felling, more hand sewing of all of the little tiny holes was quite a lot, but it was nice to have it all done and be able to actually try it on without putting a thread through and ruining the fabric. I'm able to try it on. Using a white cord, I used a large hooked needle to help put the cord through the holes. I tighten all of the spiral lacing. After attaching the long blue sleeves on underneath, sewing together a quick shift, I am able to fully have my medieval kirtle.
I hope you enjoyed today's video. I certainly did. Yeah. Please like and subscribe, and let's do for more. Bye!